in some measure. Okay, yeah, got it. I agree, 100%. Everybody agrees that it's good. Not everybody agrees what it is. And although people talk about it, I think that the ideas of how you promote it are inadequate. I think they miss a crucial element of self-esteem. Now, let me get out of my briefcase here a document which I took down on the net on self-esteem and share it with you. Then we'll be able to evaluate what we're dealing with. Self-esteem is generally the feeling that you are worthy, feeling that you're good, valuable, okay, fine. And as we know, some people have it, some people don't. Now, here are 7 ways that are suggested on a website called Improving Your Self-Esteem. One is identify and challenge your negative beliefs. Notice thoughts you have about yourself. For example, you might find yourself saying, I'm not clever enough to do that. I have no friends. When you do, look for evidence that contradicts those statements. Write down the statement of the evidence. Keep looking back at it to remind yourself that your negative beliefs about yourself are not true. Can you imagine a kind of limitation on that strategy?
Yeah. What if you know it's a
I mean, what if the beliefs are true? What if you really had problematic areas to your life? Will it help you to search for evidence that they're not true, which now you're biased when you would do this search? You're looking for evidence they're not true. You might misinterpret the evidence. And that will keep you from confronting the fact that you have failures, you have deficiencies, and will prevent you from correcting them to become a really valuable person rather than a person who's pretending to be valuable. So this piece of advice is at least ambiguous and short-sighted. Identify the positive about yourself. This is the second piece of improving self-esteem. So you write down the things which are being good at sports or nice things people say about you and so forth and so on. And here too, if your goal, the strategy, the rule that you are telling yourself is write down good things about yourself, not asking for a balanced evaluation of yourself, looking at yourself on all sides, to see all aspects, just looking for good things about yourself, you're biased in favor of that outcome, and that you find accurate. Then build positive relationships and avoid negative ones.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, yeah, Jerusalem traffic can be really rough. Give me a minute, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Here's so Jerusalem generally has pretty good self-esteem.
He's gonna usually he's talking about it.
We heard that already.
Oh,
There we go.
we lost you for a minute.
Okay, so the third thing is building positive relationships. Now, positive in their terminology means people who reinforce you, who praise you, who flatter you. And although that's part of relationships, it's very shallow. And here I want to insert a remark about friendship. I think your experience will tell you that there are 2 kinds of friends. There are friends with whom you share enjoyed activities, and the friends are specific for that. Some friends are wonderful to go on a hike in the forest. Some friends are wonderful for a political discussion. Some friends are wonderful to play chess. You both enjoy the same activity. And so therefore, your friendship consists in engaging in that activity together. That's very common, helpful, useful, supportive. It does build some happiness, but it's very shallow because such a person will never tell you what you need to do to improve. All they want to do is have a good time with you. So they're not looking to criticize you, not looking to make you feel down on yourself. Therefore, you lack honest feedback that could help you improve. So again, this piece of advice is at best partial and shallow. Let me go on to the next page. Here we go. The fourth piece of advice is give yourself a break. Okay, some people do pressure themselves too much, and I'm not, they're workaholics. They don't give themselves time to do the things that they particularly enjoy. Just give yourself a break, right? But again, that could be taken too hard. Key is not to be too hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself and not too critical. Don't be too critical. There was a time, psychology has matured a little bit in the last 30 years. There was a time when they were obsessed with excess guilt. And the way that you get rid of excess guilt is to realize that your standards are unrealistic. Your standards are just prejudicial. They come from your religion, which is nonsense anyway. They come from your authoritarian parents who don't know anything about your life. Just junk your standards and you won't feel guilty. And that's true. If you don't have any standards, you won't feel guilty. You will have turned into a mouse. I don't think that's progress. How about learning to live up to your standards? That wasn't in the vocabulary. Vocabulary was just avoiding standards because they're unrealistic and therefore not holding yourself to so high an expectation. But giving yourself a break also is superficial. There can be some truth in it, but it's very superficial. Become more assertive and learn to say no. Yes, some people are addicted to agreeability, and in that case, it's very it doesn't say anything. Learn to say no. How do you say no? How about the havchana, the evaluation of when it's appropriate and when it isn't appropriate? Improves your physical health. I'm all for that. I exercise regularly, and I think exercise and proper diet, I think that's 100% correct. Of course, it can be taken too far. Take on challenges. This is the first one that I think begins to show some real wisdom. What is the implication of a challenge? The implication of a challenge is that there's such a thing as success and failure. This is less self-protective. That's small. Okay. Mitsuyan. Okay, Tadar Rabbi. Okay, I'm getting out of the taxi. I will try to talk as I walk. I was trained to do two things at once. So I think that this suggestion of taking on challenges, in a way, is different from the first six because it exposes you to both success and failure. Now, I think that's good. I think that a person needs to know that there are requirements that are being that he has to live up to, and that there is such a thing as success and failure. And I think it's good. It's sort of confidence person accomplish something real, not build an imaginary protective case in which he can insulate himself and convince himself of things that aren't true. No, he can actually accomplish things that are objectively real. That's because they're objective standards for success and failure. Of course, you have to choose your challenges carefully, and their suggestion is to try to choose them in such a way that you are more or less guaranteed to succeed. But by the very nature of a challenge, there is such a thing as failure, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But all of this neglects something absolutely fundamental. Let me share with you an article that was in Jewish Action, I think 3 years ago. The article came out just before Pesach, written by a woman, and she was talking about building self-esteem in her son. I guess he was 7. And she said, I assigned him to do the bookcases for Pesach. Take down all the books, dust and shine the bookcase, dust all the books and put them back. And he did it. It took him hours, and it was hard, and he succeeded, and he did a fine job. And when we sat down to the Seder, 30 of us, I said to all of the people, look at those books and look at those bookshelves. You know who did that? Yankee did that. He did it himself. How do you think Yankee felt at that moment? Don't you think he felt like $1 million? Why did he feel like $1 million? Because he did something important, and he did it as a contribution to other people. It's doing for others that essentially that he has valuable to others. The way easy to create a sense of self-value is if it's confirmed by the fact that other people benefit from what you're valuable. You're valuable to them, and you see the value in them because of the improvement in their lives. So I think that you build real self-esteem. This is not imaginary, and it's verifiable. It's something which is factual and public, that you really made a difference in someone else's life. And by the way, this does not have to be reciprocal. Even if the other person doesn't know it, you're a doctor in an emergency room. People are brought in terrible shape, and you are the first responder. You repair what can be done. You send them upstairs to the hospital, continuing care. Will they ever meet you? Will they not meet you? Let's say thank you. You know the person who came into your care dying, and he left your care and he survived. Don't you feel at the end of the day that you're a valuable person? You saved someone's life. Now, I wrote an article for a far left Jewish publication called Tikkun, because the yeshiva was interested in my breaking in there on this subject. I surveyed websites on self-esteem all over the world. Not one mentioned this. Not one mentioned the fact that if you do something for somebody else, make a difference in their lives, you improve their lives in some way, then that will give you not only a feeling of self-esteem, but it will be realistic. It's based on a reality. I recommended in every classroom, in any school, you have 30 kids, let's say. Every kid in that class has something which he could use to improve the life of at least one other student. There ought to be some time during the week where each student has an opportunity to do something for another student, and see the outcome. This guy can help the other one with his baseball, or he can help in mending a relationship with his brother, or whatever it is. Every kid can do something that builds friendship, and it builds solidarity, builds appreciation among them. I think would be a wonderful suggestion for part of the curriculum. And this is true in all of adult life as well. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose I ask you for advice. I'm going to India. I'm going to spend a year in India. I've never been there. You spent 3 years there. So I say, listen, I know you've been there. Please tell me about what it's like there, and give me some advice, where to go, who to see, what to do. Now let's analyze what's going on between you and me, right? If you do this, so I get information about India, right? I'm really benefiting from what you give me. How do you feel when I ask you to share your information? Do you feel, what a waste of time? Do I have to do this? Okay. When someone asks you for advice, what they're saying is you are knowledgeable, you're experienced, you're intelligent, you're articulate, and you're kind enough to share it with me. Doesn't that make you realize how good you are? Whoops, what happened? Oh, somebody came in on the telephone, but I lost the picture. Are we still there?
Think someone's trying to call you. Oh, it's someone else.
No, I think someone's trying to call in to us.
Oh, I think that's my problem. It's on my side. I'm sorry. Silence. Let me put on do not disturb. On my side, at least anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't outside.
Here we go. Do not disturb. Here we go. Do not disturb.
Hi.
I hear you. Yes, you hear me?
Yeah.
I do hear. And you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so now when I ask you for advice, what that says to you is that I think that you are knowledgeable, experienced, articulate, intelligent, and generous. So I'm confirming your worth by expressing the fact that you are benefiting me. That confirms your worth. Now, if you know someone who is suffering from low self-esteem, instead of following the advice that I read to you, flatter them, tell them how good they are, protect them from disappointments, protect them from challenges, enable them to reinforce the things that are good about them and so on. No, don't do that. Or don't do that alone. Give them opportunities to do something good for somebody else. When you ask a person for help, you're doing him a gigantic favor. You're doing him a gigantic service because you're building up his real self-esteem. This also contributes to explaining something which you're probably familiar with. What happens when people retire? You know that when people retire, they often go into decline. Physical decline, mental decline, and emotional decline. One of the reasons they go into decline is because nobody needs them. If nobody needs them, then there's no value to what they're doing. They used to get up at 8 o'clock to be in the office at 9 o'clock. Now they can sleep till noon. Is that good? No, it's not good. Because if you can sleep till noon, it means nobody cares whether you live or die. It makes no difference to anyone. So when you say to such a person, volunteer in schools, volunteer in hospitals, or whatever it is, it's not just that you're looking for free labor to help benefit the community. You're benefiting that person, because then when he wakes up in the morning, he says, yeah, but Joe is waiting for me. I have to go talk to him. I have to go talk to him because he needs me. That means I'm important. That means I have value. Now, where does this come from? Is this a Jewish idea? Let's think about briefly what we know about the world and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and why he created the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world in order to do good. Olam chesed yiboneh. The world is built on chesed, which is loving kindness. Loving kindness is an original principle that itself is the push to give. As Ramchal says in the Das Tvunos, derech hatov leitiv. Imagine a person, maybe you've heard of Albert Schweitzer, who was supposed to be a secular saint of certain kind. He went to Africa as a doctor. He treated people who were impoverished and ignorant, had no culture. Imagine him on a South Sea island all alone. So would you call him good? Well, you could say it's a good nature. You say good character, but it's unrealized. It's unapplied. Far better an Albert Schweitzer who's in Africa treating natives than an Albert Schweitzer on a South Sea island treating no one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is perfection. Since he's perfection, he is the best that can be. In particular, the good that he has is not mere potential good, it's actual good. That's what it means. Derech hatov le'etiv, it's the way of the good to do good, because otherwise the good that you have is only potential. That's not ideal. So Kadosh Baruch Hu creates the world in order to do good. This is chapter 1 of the Derech Hashem, word for word. So that means that everything that happens in the world is motivated by doing good. Even justice, when it occurs, when it appears, is only as a way of implementing doing good. If you like, we could talk about that in more depth a little later.
Yeah, Rabbi, we lost your town. I'm gonna ask him something.
If I'm doing something to benefit someone else, I'm playing God's role in the world. That's what he's doing, and I'm becoming his shaliach, agent. Shaliach, by the way, is agent, not messenger. I'm becoming his shliach. I'm becoming his instrument to do the good in the world that he wants done. What could possibly create more self-esteem than that? That you're becoming godlike. What could be greater than that? What could be more valuable than that? You have a class in here now? Okay, so your office is open? Okay, I'm moving once more. Okay. All right, here we are. Here. Yeah. Now, that means that when you look at the Torah, all aspects of the Torah, what you are meant to see is ways of benefiting the world. The world means everyone and everything in it. In a large sense, it even means, although this is going to sound strange, it even means benefiting the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, Eizu chasid hamischasedim kolno. Who is a chassid? Now, chassid is a word built on chesed. Chassid means a practitioner of chesed, someone who's practicing loving kindness. And it says, who is a practitioner of loving kindness? He who does loving kindness for his creator. Now, at this point, the person thinks, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Kodesh Baruch Hu is perfect, self. And the answer, although this is like a headline on a much longer discussion, the headline is this: that HaKadosh Baruch Hu relates to us in at least two different ways. One way is to know that he is complete, he's perfect, he's independent, he's self-sustaining and self-defined. That's true, all of that is true. But he also projects of himself a kind of image that we are supposed to focus on and absorb and live with. And in this projected image, there are the content which you also know from what you have learned. Because Baruch Hu created the world for a purpose. That purpose is to perfect it. It's got to become perfected. It was created imperfect, and the goal is to perfect it. And we are the ones who are going to participate in perfecting it. We're going to make it perfect. So now, if I say, look, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and left it imperfect. Here are its imperfections. Here's where he wants me to insert myself into the process. Here's what he wants me to do to make it more perfect. I want to push his project forward. I want to do this for him, that his project should succeed. When I say that, I'm doing it for him. Because he explains himself to us, I should say, as having a project and wanting us to participate in the perfection of the world. So when we act in that way, we are really doing for him. Whether that fits with the top level of being perfect and self-sustaining and self-defining and all the rest, because Baruch Hu relates to us on both levels, and they're both real. So if I do this, I'm becoming godlike because I'm acting out God's whole program for the world. And that includes acting it out for the people around me, acting it out for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and acting it out for myself as well. There's such a thing as doing chesed to yourself. Although, Yez Hashem, we'll talk about that next time. So I think that when we're talking about self-esteem, when you realize, when you realize that doing for others not only proves that you're valuable because you made a real difference in their lives, you see that you've made a real difference in their lives, but when you understand that you are acting out God's role in the world, I think that that's a self-esteem that's based on a reality, and it's based on looking at yourself in the most realistic way. It's not forcing you to consider only one side and not another side, or to avoid challenges. After all, when you act to improve somebody else's life, that's a challenge that can be failed, as you know very well. When you have tried to intervene in other people's lives to benefit them, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it either has no effect or it makes things worse. That does happen. So here, there's definitely a feedback. And a person who wants to benefit others has to be very realistic about the feedback. Otherwise, in the long term, he will not succeed. So I'm suggesting this as a key to the idea of self-esteem, and a key to the idea of understanding what the Torah says about the meaning of really having a realistic understanding of your true worth. Let's stop here for questions.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
how do you know what part of the world is imperfect that you can, when you're saying that Hashem left parts imperfect, that you can say that I'm going, to start it off, that you're working to make it perfect in His honor. How do you know what's left imperfect that you're trying to fix?
Okay, that's a very good question. Let me start with just a little introduction, because I sometimes find that there's a little bit of confusion about this. A God is perfect. He would make something that's imperfect. I want you to imagine two things. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle, and you buy it for your kids. It has 100 pieces. You open up the box, and the box is full of disconnected pieces. And they say, "You cheated me. I wanted a picture. What is this with disconnected pieces? It's broken." And you say, no. This is a perfect puzzle. It's perfect for a puzzle. Puzzles come with disconnected pieces. They don't come with connected pieces. So when we say the world is imperfect, we don't mean that God, Chas v'Shalom, made a mistake, or he was lacking power or understanding. What we mean is he created something that does exactly the job that it has to do. And if the job, let's say in this case, to train the child with perception and coordination and organization, then the 100 disconnected pieces are the perfect tool for training the child. So our world, which has potentials that are unrealized, that's the perfect world for us to be able to become the best thing that we can possibly become. So I don't mean to say, God forbid, that there's any failure in God's ability and performance of creating the world. He made a world that is perfectly incomplete for the job of completing it that needs to be done. Now, how do we know which parts need to be taken care of? So there are two ways. First of all, when you have a mitzvah, the mitzvah is telling you that until this action is done, something's missing. And when you do this action, you contribute that missing piece. The very fact that there's a rule that tells you to do this means that creation is incomplete, and this action that the rule prescribes is something that helps to complete it. Also, there are values that the Torah promotes which aren't tied to specific actions, but they are outcomes, which are good outcomes. Like, for example, loving kindness, where loving kindness transcends the specific behavioral rules that we have, and anything that can make another person's life better. Of course, having said that, I'd be very careful to understand that the Torah has its own definition of better. The Torah has its own definition of better. And we have to be careful not to import an external standard of better. Here are two examples. One's obvious and the other maybe a little less obvious. You know someone, let's say, who is an alcoholic. He knocks on your door at 1:30 a.m. and says, gin, I have to have a bottle of gin. Please, give me a bottle of gin. I think we agree the right thing to do is not to give it to him. He wants it, that's true, and usually you'd like to be kind and generous, but not when it's self-destructive. We say, listen, you have to break this, and if you suffer now, maybe that'll bring you to the point where we'll be able to break it, because your life is going to pieces. We can't contribute to your injuring yourself in that way. That's one example. Another example, someone asked me, if you think God prefers the Jewish people and favors the Jewish people, why is it that per capita, that's what he said in terms of the fact, per capita, you don't have as many millionaires as this group or that group? So I said to him, who thought that being a millionaire is a Jewish value? In my books of Torah sources, nowhere does it say that it's a value to become extremely rich. If a Kodesh Baruch Hu gives it to you, so then you use it in the way that the Torah prescribes that you should use it. But if you have 900,000 and you go after another 100,000 to become a millionaire, I don't know anywhere where it says that. So you say, well, I'm helping him make money. That might not be helping him. That might not be improving his life. There was a boy who came to his Rosh Yeshiva, he was 25, and he said, my father made me a proposition. He said, come to me, work with me in the business for 10 years. I guarantee you'll have enough money to retire at 35 for the rest of your life. You can learn and contribute to day schools and everything else. Be with me for 10 years and you can retire at 35. So he said to Rosh Yeshiva, what should I do? Should I accept the offer? Rosh Yeshiva said, your father is a very intelligent person because he knows that after 10 years with him in the business, you won't want to retire. And you'll stay in the business. So when you think, what am I doing to make a person's life better? I think you have to think deeply, well, what does the Torah want for life? What does the Torah say is success in life? And contribute to that development in the life of another person. It may not be what he wants, it may not be what he appreciates, but it may be what he needs. And it may be what in the end will really make a difference in his life. People have, you probably know, I don't think this happens in America, but it happens in Israel. Some place that people drive through on Shabbos where they shouldn't be, residents will yell, Shabbos, Shabbos. And others say, not nice, it's impolite, you're not treating them with kindness and love, and you just make enemies that way. Now, I haven't done a survey for all the people who have suffered this, but I do know one person who said, I thought to myself, why does it bother them? So I'm driving on Saturday, so what? Does it mean something to them? It excites them in some way? Maybe I should find out what's bothering them. And that's how he became frum. Because their passionate reaction to something which to him was absolutely trivial puzzled him. They did him a gigantic favor, a favor that he couldn't appreciate until later when he realized what they were communicating. So I think we have to be very subtle about this. We have to understand what the Torah's values are for life, and contribute that to the lives of the people around us. And then we can say we are truly making a contribution. So these are some ways in which you can know what is it in the world that needs completion.
Thank
Yes.
you. I understand that by contributing to society and helping someone else, in effect, it really builds our self-esteem. But what if I fail at that? Then what?
So first of all, I would urge you not to judge success or failure by the immediate reaction. Because sometimes you're planting a seed and you don't know how it will turn out in the future. Especially if you have a disagreement with someone, an argument with someone, the person walks away stone cold without any admission of any fault whatsoever. But you don't know what's going on inside. All of us want to save face. We don't want to admit that we were wrong. We don't want to take something back. I had a boy here, I'm at Or Sameach, I came, there was a boy here for 3 months. Every time he opened his mouth, he said something critical. Not once supportive, not once accepting. Every time he opened his mouth, he said something critical. And after 3 months, he disappeared. 14 years later, I was in Los Angeles and I was speaking. So somebody comes up to me and says, "You remember me?" I said, "No. I'm that boy from 14 years ago." I said, "What happened?" He said, I heard what you said and I thought about it for 7 years. He thought about it for 7 years. Meanwhile, he went to Yale and got a degree and everything else. After 7 years, he decided that I was right. He moved to Passaic and he brought up a family there, and now he's in Eretz Israel. So don't judge whether you're a success or failure by the immediate reaction. Could very well be that you'll have an effect over years that will be very positive. Number one. Number two, if it looks like a failure, I think what you should do is review what you did. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Ask others, describe the situation to others. Say, listen, this was the interaction. This was the response that I got. What would you recommend? Take it as a project in hand. This is the way to deal with your performance and evaluation, as opposed to what I read to you before from the website on improving self-improvement and self-esteem. Be honest, open-minded for the positives and negatives, with a commitment to be able to improve what needs improvement, to change the strategies, to learn something new. They say with the confidence that you will succeed. We say with the confidence that you will receive Siyata Shemayim. Not that I can and I'm powerful. Don't empower people. The power doesn't live in your bones. The power lives in your help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you say, if I really want to succeed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help me. And that being the case, I will try. I will daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he should give me help. And then the HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, under the normal conditions, I will help you and you will be more successful. So use it as a moment for reflection. And look at this as a kind of lifelong pursuit of a better and better understanding and better performance.
Rabbi?
Yeah, back.
So if giving to others is really the correct way for me to build my own self-esteem, doesn't that kind of turn the other person almost into a vehicle of my own self-improvement? Like I'm helping them, but it's really helping myself. It can be narcissistic, as the psychologist will tell you, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Let's contrast two situations. I'm in business and I'm missing a certain element of the market. And I know there's another guy who has a business that is complementary to mine. And if we make an alliance, we're very definitely going to cover much more of the market. So make a proposal to him, and he makes a counter proposal. And of course, I treat him nicely and I treat him kindly, and I point out all the benefits he's going to have from the alliance and so forth and so on. My goal is profit. Thank you. That's all, just profit. But that's business. Nothing wrong with that. You're in business to make profit. And so we create a mutually supportive relationship because that's the way to make more profit. There are such relationships. And I don't think that they're necessarily puzzled. Anything wrong with them? I contrast that with love. Contrast that with real love. When you do something for someone that you love, isn't there a thrill? Not because she's going to do something back for me, I'm speaking as a man, but because she's better off. She's in a better position now. How do I know that that's the true feeling? Because what happens when something benefits her that I didn't do? Do I say, oh, I missed an opportunity to gain some credit? No, I'm just as thrilled when somebody else does it or something else happens. I want her to be good. I'm not thinking about myself at all. That's what happens in love. There's really the commitment to the other person. Or, for example, with children. Although I do think there could be people who are motivated by self-actualization. By the way, let me insert a footnote here. I mean, I lived in the Maslow days, Abraham Maslow days, where self-actualization was a big thing. He stressed a very deep point, which goes back to Aristotle, People are successful in using projects to become happy when they don't think about themselves at all. When they identify with the project. Aristotle said this, people who chase happiness are the least happy. And Maslow said that also. If your project is, I want to be more actual, I want to be more fulfilled, I want to be more real, then you're not going to succeed. But if you're attracted, you're absorbed into the project. For you, the project is what counts. So then the self-actualization will happen as an afterthought, as a byproduct. That was the depth in what he said. So I think in a sad, crippled way, it could happen that way. But in a healthy way, it doesn't have to happen that way. And I think that when you see the difference that you make in the other person's life, if you're a normal person and you see the beauty that's added to their lives, that in itself is the reinforcement, not the sense of, and now that I did something good, so I'm more valuable. That's I'm more valuable. I feel better about myself, and therefore I have higher self-esteem. No. It's this in and of itself. I'm a philosopher, so I read a considerable amount in philosophy. David Hume, who is a very great philosopher and wrote a lot of things that I have to fight with, he made a very interesting observation in writing about basis of ethics. Imagine you're a messenger and you have to deliver a package at someone's house. So you knock on the door, but, oh, that's wonderful. Please put it down on the table. I'll get the papers and I'll give you the papers, so on and so on. While he's out of the room, you look around and you see nice furnishings, nice balance of colors, sunlight coming in the window, flowers on the table, nice ventilation, some air coming in from outside, a garden outside. When you see that, how do you feel? It doesn't belong to you. You're going to be there for 5 minutes and you're going to walk out. But isn't there a nice feeling? Gee, this is nice. Not, and I wish I had it, or I wish he didn't have it with envy and no, just it's nice. It's nice that someone lives here. There's a feeling, he calls it a natural feeling of sympathy, that when you see someone who has something nice, it's something which to you feels good that he has something nice. Now, what I'm talking about is that feeling, but doubled by the fact that you made it. You made it that he has something nice. When you look at that and say, yes, I did something worthwhile because look, he has something good, or I've taken away from him something bad. So, imagine, I'll give you another example. Imagine someone's relative has been kidnapped by terrorists. Dare I say that? I won't use the ethnic designation. Kidnapped by terrorists. The person's worried sick. You have a private piece of information that has been released. You run to them and you say, it's okay, it's over, they're released. And they break out in tears of joy and happiness. How do you feel at that moment? Don't you feel overjoyed that you brought joy to them? Because it's wonderful that they're happy instead of scared to death. There, it's the appreciation for the beautiful thing that they have in their lives, which is the sense of the fact that you did something important, not the other way around. Not that you're important because it makes you feel important. Therefore you have the self-esteem. No, it's the inherent experience of doing something for somebody else that brings that out in you, and that's because Rav Dessler says in his Kuntres Chesed, he makes the neshama as mitzayit b'tzelem Elokim. It shares some essential characteristics with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Tzelem Elokim is only satisfied when it does good for others. Or for oneself. I'll talk about that next time. Yes, Hashem. But does good, doing good, benefiting is what makes the Tzelem Elokim satisfied. And if you don't have that, you live a stultified, unsatisfied life. And when you have that, that generates the satisfaction. And that's not using the other person as a tool for my self-actualization. On the contrary, my self-actualization comes from the fact that I inherently appreciate the good that happens to the other person.
We have a question from someone in the video. Dr. Thing, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, fine with me. I don't know how to do it. But...
Let me just say hello to me. It's on.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, Rabbi. Thank you so much. This class is incredible. I have my granddaughter with me, so she has a question because it's just great. Hold on 1 second. Chedva.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a question. My question is, I think it's such a beautiful idea for your self-esteem to come from giving to other people, but there's an inherent risk of becoming like too invested in the other people and then losing out on having an independent self-value. So my question is, how do you ensure that you have a value of your own aside from how you are able to contribute to other people?
How you have value of your own as apart from the value you have by helping others. Let me try to think about this question with an example. Let's take a person as a surgeon, and he's trained in surgery, and he's invented surgeries which have become worldwide because he publicized them and gave them away on videos. And the toughest cases of surgery come to him, and he's well recognized and well appreciated. And he spends 6 hours on a very difficult surgery, and it's successful. Now, can we imagine him saying at the end of the 6 hour surgery, wow, that was tough and it was successful and it's my expertise and I was able to save this person, but when will I have some time for myself? Wasn't that 6 hours for himself, for his expertise, for his creativity, for his genius? Wasn't that for himself? Is only bowling and walking through the forest for yourself? Why isn't that for yourself? Isn't the fact that you save lives through surgery, through something that you worked years to perfect, isn't that a great part of yourself? I don't hear how we are distinguishing between that which I do for others and myself as if that's two different worlds. When I do something for somebody else, that's not myself. That's not myself. So when do I get time to do for myself? I don't hear the division between the two things. When you are a parent of Yitzhak Hashem, now psychology is psychology. You need time to sleep, so you need time off. Sometimes pressure can be too overwhelming. So we understand that is that time for myself as opposed to time for others. One way that our sources look at it is this. This, by the way, is something I say to caretakers. Caretakers often suffer from a paradox, which is terrible. But the paradox is this: I love my parent, my child. Someone needs special care. No one can give care like I can. No one's dedicated like I can. No one knows the person like I can. Only I can do it. When I do it, it's the best, and I'm not willing to put up with less than best. I'm not hiring anybody. I'm doing it myself. What's the result? 18 hours a day, day after day, 7 days a week. After a while, they get worn out. After a while, their care begins to deteriorate because they're worn out. Now they say, but I'm the only one who can do it. And if I don't do it, then I'm sacrificing on my responsibility. I'm not acting out my love for the person. So they berate themselves, they become down on themselves, and the care becomes worse. What they don't realize is that having someone replace them from time to time is an investment in their own care. It makes their care better. It's not an escape from care. It's not irresponsible, not denying the love that they have. It's investing in the love that they have. The Torah believes in rest and recreation. The Torah believes in refreshment because it makes the time that you spend working on the project much more valuable time. And if I become tired and become worn out, that's the way Gottlieb created me. I met someone who was a fresh, new, observant Jew, and he said, I just can't stand sleeping. I'm wasting a third of my life, and I'm not serving God. His mistake was that sleeping can also be serving God. So I'm not talking about not having time off for rest and recuperation, but that's what R&R is, rest and recuperation. To recuperate means to regain, to get back the powers that you had before. But the idea that when I'm doing for others, somehow that's not for me, I think that's a wrong category. It is for me, but there's some other things I need for me in order for me to be able to do all the things I need to do as well as I can. You know, when you're, let's say, apprenticing at a job, so you say, I'm working for them and I'm working at such low pay. And it's really an unfair system. Just wait till I get out of this and get a real job. Is that really true? They take you on as an apprentice so you'll learn the job. Isn't it for you? You're working for them and doing what they say, and you're getting a low pay, but you're becoming better suited at the job. You're getting experience. You're gaining understanding. You're gaining technique. So I don't hear the division between doing for others on the one hand and doing for myself. I think when I'm doing for others, I'm online there. I'm identified there. I don't feel that I'm giving myself up. Hey, I'll give you one more example. You've heard of the Navy SEALs? These are anti-terrorist groups, so let's say an American diplomat is captured and being held and being tortured, and the president calls together the top 25 Navy SEALs, and he said, listen, we need 3 of you to go in and save him. Now it's dangerous. The person might even die. I want to know, are there any volunteers? Now, what would you expect? 20 Navy SEAls. Would anybody volunteer? Would you say, if you volunteer, you're crazy, you might die? No, their attitude is, this is what I was trained to do. He called me in because we're the only people in the country who can do it. This is something that needs to be done. That's my calling. That's where I'm going to make my contribution. So of course I'm volunteering. It's that sense of this thing needs me. That means that it's my contribution, and then I'm online. It's not that I'm not doing for myself. It's a better way to put it is it's myself that's doing, and that's what makes it valuable. I think that you have to think through the question again. I think the division that you made is a division that needs to be thought again. You've heard of the Walter Reed Hospital in Washington? Walter Reed was a doctor. He discovered that yellow fever is caused by mosquitoes, and nobody believed him, so he infected himself. He did this in public. He infected himself with yellow fever, and he caught the disease, and he almost died. He happened to recover. People were then convinced, and they went after the mosquitoes. How many thousands of lives did he save? Because he said, this is killing people, and I know it's killing people. And I've got to convince people that they shouldn't be killed. They shouldn't die like this. It's that sense. Now, you say, but what is he going to do for himself? I think that the self is there in a much more powerful way when you save people's lives than it is when you're reading a novel. That's my suggestion to you.
All right. Anyone else have a question for the Rabbi? Maybe 1 or 2 more? Anyone else?
We're done?
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Very, very welcome. Very, very welcome as always. And I'll see you again next week. Hashem.
Thank you.